mine over, huh?
You're on the road.
Whoa.
Knock that
Don't you have people?
Yeah, I got people.
He's got to do it all, right? He's got to do it all. We put that together really
He's a
purposeful,
full-service
too.
speaker. The guy's got skills.
Oh.
Need some caulk?
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Today marks 100 days of President Trump's second term, and I am honored that he has chosen to celebrate in my home state of Michigan. There's no better place to celebrate 100 days than in Macomb County, Michigan. The first 100 days proves that we are headed in the right direction, the direction in which 77 million people voted for. Just look at the White House lawn today. Pictures of violent, illegal aliens that Biden let into our country. These rapists, murderers, and child molesters have no home here in the United States of America. And guess what? There's room on the White House lawn for a lot more of them. And that's what the American people voted for. And we are going to keep going until every single one of them is removed to make our streets for Americans safer. Thankfully, there's a lot less of those illegals coming in now, because apprehensions at the border are down 94%. And Border Patrol averaged the lowest daily nationwide apprehensions in history. President Trump is taking action and Congress is passing border security bills. We've sent a message. The border is closed. Now, on the other hand, Democrats' message is open borders and literally putting violent MS-13 gang members before the American people. That's their message. Look no further than their recent trip to El Salvador, one of which was funded with, yes, taxpayer dollars. Instead of meeting with their constituents, Democrats catered to MS-13 gang members. Not the family of Rachel Morin or the family of Lincoln Riley. No. They would rather have MS-13 gang members who entered our country illegally brought back to the United States. That is the Democratic Party. Own it. On numerous occasions, they have sided with violent illegal aliens and gang members. Democrats are doubling down on their failed agenda. Why? Because they have no plan, no vision, and no leader. Or maybe they do. Maybe their next leader is in MS-13. Meanwhile, House Republicans, we have our leader. And that leader is our president, Donald Trump. He's unleashed American energy, taken out terrorists, and restored common sense by protecting women's sports. And he's achieved all of this in his first 100 days. Now, turning our attention to our business and our work this week, committees have been instructed, and we will begin to pass pieces of that one big, beautiful bill. We will identify savings and investments that will make America secure and competitive. Now, as we continue our committee work, I encourage you to watch the markups very, very closely. You will see Democrats go on the record supporting the largest tax increase in American history. Benefits for illegal immigrants and violent gang members, because that's who they support. And Democrats want the destruction of American energy and the American energy industry and the good paying jobs that come with that industry. And before Democrats begin their fear-mongering, which we know they'll do, let me be clear. The only cuts that this bill makes are to the waste, the fraud, and the abuse that are in their bloated bureaucracy. And somehow, Democrats will have a problem with those. They ignore the fact of what the American people want. The American people want lower taxes. The American people want good-paying jobs. They want a safe and secure and, most of all, competitive America. That's why House Republicans will continue our work this week to put Americans first and make America safe and secure again. While Democrats who are lost and leaderless fearmonger and fight against the American people's agenda, we will get to work to pass that one great, big, beautiful bill. Now I will turn it over to my freshman colleague, Troy Downing of Montana. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
Here, Troy.
What's that? Oh,
You probably don't need that.
I'm feeling towering over there. Well, first of all, to leadership, Speaker Johnson, Leader Scalise, Whip Emmer, and Chair McClain, thank you for allowing me to speak about this. I'm really excited, and thank you all for being here and listening. I'm very excited about this first 100 days. President Trump, in his first term talked about promises made, promises kept. And I think this time it's on steroids. And I think it's important because this country was at a precipice, was absolutely at a precipice. And I hear some of the critics saying too much, too fast. And I'm saying it couldn't have happened soon enough and it can't happen fast enough because we can't afford falling off of that precipice. I mean, as a nation, everything that we talk about, you hear this American dream, that's being squandered, has been squandered. That brass ring is getting farther and farther away. And the policies of this president have started to pull that back in everything that he's doing, in helping with the economy, in tax policy, in having trading partners trade fairly with this country, which is something that's overdue. Everything that's happening right now, securing the border, is all going to come back and bring that brass ring back that is that American dream. And I'm really, really excited about that. 140 executive orders. Our job now is to start codifying those so they're not fungible, so that the next administration can't undo that. We need to have policy. We need to have laws passed on that. I'm looking at the investment. Everybody's talking about the trade policies. What has that resulted in? In just this first 100 days, we got $5 trillion being expected to be reinvested in this country, 451,000 jobs. I mean, talk about giving you an ability to rebuild that American dream. I mean, we are on that path. We're looking at gas prices down 6.3%. Earnings on all private sector employees grew 1.4%. Doge. I mean, so many of us are shocked at what they were uncovering. $160 billion, and that comes to about $1,000 per taxpayer in waste, fraud, and abuse that's being crawled back. And it can't happen soon enough. And the other thing that affects my district, affects this entire country, is that invasion at the southern border. And we have seen a stop to that almost instantly. Only 9 illegal aliens were released into the United States since the president was sworn in. That's a 99.99% decrease. I mean, as I said, this couldn't happen fast enough. I believe this country was at a precipice. I think the president is delivering on his promises, and this conference is ready, willing, and able to start codifying this into law so that it continues to claw back everything that is the American dream, everything that's great about this country, and I'm happy to be part of that team. Thank you.
Great job. Oh, oops.
President Trump's first 100 days in office can be described in 4 words: promises made, promises kept. Thanks to President Trump, the border is more secure than it's ever been, and criminal, illegal aliens are off our streets and out of our country. Under President Trump, American energy is being unleashed. Domestic production empowered, and historic investments have been secured. We've seen waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government exposed and rooted out like never before. And common sense has replaced the woke nonsense that had saturated our government and way of life. President Trump has moved at a record pace to bring America back from the pit the Biden administration left us in. With Joe Biden in office, our nation endured the influx of millions of unvetted illegal aliens, criminal aliens, from all over the world into our communities. American businesses were held back by an expansive regulatory state, and policies that lacked truth and disregarded reality put our children and families in jeopardy. But no more. The American dream is being renewed, and the American people can once again be prosperous, safe, and free. But to keep this train going, Congress must act. Our members are hard at work crafting a reconciliation bill that will deliver President Trump's America First agenda for our great nation. And we won't rest until we get it done, because failure is simply not an option. And I yield to our leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Whip. Well, anybody who's been following since the day President Trump took the oath of office for this second term knows that President Donald Trump has been working nonstop at a feverish pace to deliver results for the American people. I don't think we've seen a president in 100 days get more things accomplished, follow through on more promises to get this country back on track. And we're only 100 days in. Obviously, the things that we've been working with this president on are really going to be starting off in a much bigger way with this one big beautiful bill. The budget reconciliation process formally starts today with the reconciliation bill. 7 committees go to work this week. Next week, another 4 committees will continue doing that important work. And this has been about a year in the making. This is not something that happened overnight. All of our committees have been meeting both individually. We've been meeting with the president for about a year to get to this moment and start delivering on those things that we all ran on. These are not just campaign promises that Donald Trump talked about on a campaign trail. This is also something that House Republicans said we would do. We said we would prevent a massive tax increase on American families. If Congress takes no action, there would be a $4.5 trillion tax hike on families. And if you listen to Democrats, who are all going to vote no on this package, let's make no mistake about it. They've been clear from the beginning. They just want to obstruct everything. You saw it at the State of the Union when President Trump said, look, this 13-year-old boy beat cancer. And they all just sat there on their hands, angry because President Trump was highlighting somebody else's success. And I think the American people got disgusted when they realized a whole major party in America is just going to oppose anything President Trump does because they hate him as an individual, even when it's good for America. And believe me, preventing a tax increase on over 90% of American families is good for America. But every Democrat will vote no because they want a tax increase on American families. Every Democrat will vote no on a bill that's going to secure America's border. You've seen President Trump deliver through executive action on things he can do. And it's resulted in amazing results, over 95% reduction in border crossings illegally, deportation of hardened criminals, violent gang members, murderers, rapists, finally sent back to prisons in their country where they belong, where many of them came from. And what are Democrats doing? Democrats aren't celebrating that. They're flying to other countries to try to get hardened gang members in prisons released back into the United States. It's lunacy. But that's where their party is because they are void of any ideas. They are a leaderless party. The Democrat Party literally has no leader except AOC and Crockett and Bernie Sanders. And that's what their party's become. They're just opposed to everything. They don't want to produce more American energy, but the good news is we do. That's also going to be in this bill that we start debating, to allow America to produce more energy so that we and our friends don't have to be dependent on foreign nations like Russia or Iran for oil and natural gas. We can do more of it. We can lower costs for families. We can create more jobs at home. We can ensure that more manufacturing can be done in America. That's all going to be part of this bill. We're also going to make our military more competitive. Everybody knows China's been incredibly aggressive at not just their naval fleet, developing hypersonic weapons. And America had fallen behind under Joe Biden. And Donald Trump said, we are going to address these inadequacies. And if you look at what's in this bill, again, addressing major problems to make our country competitive again militarily, and every Democrat will vote no on that as well. And the good news is Republicans said, well, if Democrats are just going to block everything, if Democrats want a tax hike, if Democrats do not want secure borders, if Democrats want to make our country more dependent on foreign nations for our energy, that's why they lost the election. Those days are gone. We can actually fix all of these problems without any Democrat support. We'd welcome their votes. We'd welcome their input. But they've chosen to just go the other way because their far left radical base won't let them work with Donald Trump on anything that's good for America. But that hasn't deterred President Trump. President Trump is resolute in fighting for those hardworking families who have been struggling. Again, the tax increase, when they talk about millionaires and billionaires, it's over 90% of Americans who would see a tax increase if no action was taken. That's families making $50,000, $60,000 a year. That's not the rich. That's the people who are just barely getting by, who have been struggling under the weight of the failures of Joe Biden's economy. The waitress who's maybe working 2 jobs, barely getting by, and President Trump and this Republican Congress are going to deliver on no tax on tips so that that single mom who's maybe working 2 jobs can have a little bit more money in her pocket and be able to take her kids on a vacation or invest in her kids' college. That's what we're doing this week as we watch the Democrats oppose everything just because they've become a party derelict of any ideas. This is a Congress of leadership and action, working with a president who's probably done more in 100 days than any other president we've ever seen, and the best is yet to come. And our leader in this fight, who's been marshaling us through the whole way, is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks to all of you. Welcome back. Hope you all had a blessed Passover and Easter. We did. Our members are excited. It's a great day in our country. Thanks to the Republican Party, America is back, and we're excited about it. I talked to the president twice this morning already. He's having a big celebration for the first 100 days in Michigan, as Chairwoman McClain noted, and he's excited about all of that and everything that we're all doing together. We had a big meeting of the Republican conference this morning, and they're all excited. They were all home for the 2-week district work period, and they were moving around their districts and talking with their constituents and getting lots of pats on the back. It's a great time for the country, and you can sense our optimism about all that. It's been noted a couple times here, but 100 days ago, not far from where we're standing right now, President Trump made his historic return to the presidency. He made a lot of promises, and as Whip Emmer noted, the 4 words that best describe this administration so far is promises made, promises kept. We've recounted among this group many times, 77 million Americans delivered President Trump a landslide victory. We had our highest popular vote total ever as House Republicans, 74.8 million, and we got a mandate to do exactly what we're doing right now. We have not wasted a moment. President Trump has accomplished more in the first 100 days than most presidents do in their entire careers, their entire tenures. The Atlantic, right? I don't know if there's an Atlantic reporter here this morning, but that's not President Trump's, they're not a fan of him, right? Yesterday they described him this way, quote, "He is the most consequential American leader of the 21st century." And that's an understatement. President Trump has, here's a list: removed men from women's sports, ended DEI in the federal government and the U.S. military, expanded oil and gas extraction to lower prices, taken steps to end unfair trade practices, secured trillions of dollars in new investments in American manufacturing, deported criminal illegal aliens, stood up for religious liberty and rooted out anti-Christian bias, combated virulent anti-Semitism on college campuses. The list goes on and on and on. That's just barely scratching the surface. That's in 100 days. We're just getting started, and that's one of the reasons that we're so excited. Nearly every public opinion survey found that voters in the last election were most concerned about 2 things. This is just one metric for consideration: inflation and the wide open border and the crisis that created. Look at this. On just these 2 issues in 100 days, illegal crossings are at an all-time low, as Congressman Downing noted, and inflation is falling rapidly. President Biden often said that he had exhausted his executive authority. He told me that we needed new laws. He told me this many times himself. We had to stop the border crisis, but Congress has to act. I pleaded with President Biden, do your job, use your executive authority. He claimed he didn't have it. But as President Trump has just demonstrated, all we needed was a new president. We needed real leadership. We didn't need new laws. The Trump administration has stopped illegal border crossings. Congressman Downing said it well, 99.9% success rate. The border crisis is solved. More than 100,000 illegal aliens and gang members have been deported, and that makes Americans safer. They feel more secure again. Groups of migrants are actually stopping their journeys, and they are turning around. You know why? Because we got a new sheriff in town. Due to President Trump's border policies, we now know again that deterrence works. On inflation, President Trump promised to rapidly drive down prices and make American goods affordable again. The consumer price index beat expectations, actually dropped 0.1% in March. That is the first time that has happened since COVID, okay? Inflation is cooling. Energy prices are down, as we all know. Trillions of dollars in U.S. investments have been secured by the Trump administration. And again, we're just getting started. President Trump built the greatest economy in the history of the world in the first Trump administration. And we know that he can do it again, and we're going to help. And that's what we're engaged in. People are excited all around this country. We set fundraising records in the first quarter. We gave all the numbers out to the members this morning. I raised $32.2 million in the first quarter. It's an all-time record for a Republican speaker in a midterm. I'm not taking personal credit for that. I'm saying this is an all-team effort. Every House Republican is out working. Their sleeves are rolled up. They're working around the clock. We're setting fundraising records. The vulnerable Republicans from the swing districts and the vulnerable Democrat swing districts, it's the Patriots and the frontliners, okay? The Patriots outraised Democrats 2-1. They almost doubled what Democrats raised, and they have almost double the amount of cash on hand right now. That's an indication of where the American people's sentiment is. They see that Republicans are delivering and Democrats are in disarray. While we're working to build on President Trump's successes and codify his agenda into law, the Democrats just still don't get it. I mean, they just keep demonstrating they don't get it. More than 100 days into the 119th Congress, and the contrast could not be clearer. Everybody recounted some of this today, but they don't have any message. They don't have a clear leader. They don't have a clear vision. They don't know what to do. Their platform has been repudiated, and they're turning on themselves. You know, the vice chair of the DNC is going to spend tens of millions to take down his own incumbents. That shows you where they are. They've resorted to cursing and shouting and outrageous political stunts. Their approval ratings are in the low 20s. Their most vulnerable members got outraised 2-1, as I mentioned, and it just goes on and on. I two polls I just want to highlight, and then we'll go to your questions. There was a poll that came out a little over a month ago. It's Quinnipiac. And I think it's the most telling poll of the first 100 days of this Congress. But I got the graphic in front of me. It was Politico published it. Lots of people talked about it. The headline says, Democrats face historic discontent with the base. Now, what they did was they polled Democrats and their approval of their own party and Republicans' approval of their own party. I mentioned this before, but Democrats are underwater 9%. They have a net negative 9% approval rating in their party, whereas Republicans in Congress are enjoying a 69% approval rating, okay? So that chart is stark. It's the largest chasm between the two parties in history. It's the highest marks we've ever gotten and the lowest they've ever gotten. It tells you where they are. This morning, CNN has a new poll, getting you a nod right there on the front row, right? Republicans' view of GOP leadership, 78% approve, thank you CNN, 21% disapprove, all right? Democrats' view of Democrat leadership, 42% approve, 57% disapprove. Stark contrast between the two. And one of the most baffling political displays that we've ever seen, congressional Democrats used their district work period to fly to El Salvador and provide comfort to a wife-beating MS-13 gang member who entered the U.S. illegally. I mean, it was a shameful performance, and I hope their constituents do not forget it. We won't. And we reflect on the first 100 days of the Trump administration. It's very clear which party is fighting for the American people, for a stronger and safer and more prosperous America, as Leader Scalise just said. We're happy to be here, and we're happy today. You can probably tell. Take your questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On the subject of polls about the first 100 days of President Trump's administration were released a few days ago, and he has the lowest approval rating of any president in the last 80 years, according to the Washington Post, ABC News, and Ipsos, I believe. Other polls suggest similarly low numbers. How do you interpret those numbers, and is that not a sign that your conference, your party, your leader need to be changing course given those low record ratings?
No, look, there's always in any new administration, it's a roller coaster, right? When you come in and you make dramatic change, which is what he did, he's delivering on the promises made. There's some bumps along the road. We're changing everything. As we said, when President Trump was running, I told him and we told our own voters he could be the most consequential president of the modern era. Now the media is, all of you are acknowledging that is true. By extension, we can be the most consequential Congress as well, because we quite literally have to fix every area of public policy. The last 4 years was an absolute unmitigated disaster, and we got to fix it all. So when you're doing that, it's disruptive in a way, and in the early initial people, they have an emotional reaction sometimes for the big changes, but what they're seeing and what the real polling is showing is that they understand that we're headed somewhere. This is out of the gates, all these big achievements that we just recounted, and I said we're just getting started. The reconciliation bill is the big chunk of this. The vehicle through which we will deliver the America First agenda is this big, beautiful bill, which is why we call it that. The president's approval rating is better than it was in 2017 when he got started, right? Because people trust him. The thing about President Trump is he's had an administration. This is not a new thing. People remember. It's hard to remember. It seems like it was 20 years ago. But right before COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world. There's been a little question and concern about, the rocky start, some of the stock market, some of the tariff policy and all that. But right now, even today, people are beginning to see the dust settle on that. They understand there was a master strategy behind this, and they're seeing the results. We're going to have 100 countries, by some accounts, and maybe higher, renegotiate their trade policies with America because of what President Trump did. He's the only leader bold enough to have done that. And that's going to be a net positive, of course, for all the American people. It's going to be more fair for us. We trust the executive to do that. We trust this executive to do that. And President Trump has had some great achievements. So, look, polling goes up and down. We all talk about it, pros and cons. But at the end of the day, we're going to deliver on these results, and the American people are going to reward us for it. Yeah.
Two of your members, Elise Stefanik and Mike Lawler, are both considering runs for governor of New York. Those one seat in particular, Congressman Lawler's seat, may be one of the most competitive in the country. They can't do both. They can't run for governor and Congress. Will you have conversations with them about what works best for your conference, and have you started having those conversations yet?
I have lots of conversations. I love them both. They're two of my favorite people and my most trusted colleagues, and they're both super talented, which is why they get talked about for doing other things. We have lots of, look, we've got a very talented group here. We have lots of House Republicans who are being courted to run for Senate or governor or do something big. I mean, my preference is that they all stay here with me, all right? We get the job done. But I don't begrudge anybody for having other opportunities, and we ultimately support him in whatever they do. But are we having conversations? We are, yeah, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But I ultimately, look, I support my friends and colleagues. These are more than colleagues, they're friends. And I want all of my friends to do well and go as high as they can, be of their highest and best use to the country. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Mr. Speaker Johnson, do you plan on meeting with governors to advise them on how they might restructure their budgets if you're reforming SNAP and Medicaid? Kathy Hochul is working on the New York budget.
I'm not sure Kathy Hochul and I are going to sit down and talk about New York's budget. But I will just say this. We're going to be good stewards of the taxpayers' resources, okay? Do not believe the hype. Do not believe the lies the Democrat Party has said. We had their ads taken down, okay? They were running ads around the country in swing districts trying to convince people that Republicans were going to gut Medicaid. It's just simply not true, and that's why their ads and billboards had to come down. We sent them a cease and desist letter because we pointed out they were lying. By the way, the Democrat leaders in Washington have zero credibility with the American people. Remember, they tried to tell us for the last 4 years that Joe Biden was an exceptionally talented, brilliant, on-point leader, okay? They don't have any credibility on any of this. We're going to prove the opposite. The committee markups, as Leader Scalise noted, we have 7 committees marking up components of the big, beautiful bill this week. We have 4 others next week. That third week that we return, the Budget Committee will merge all that together into the one big, beautiful bill, and you will see the results. We are going to preserve the programs. We're not gutting Medicaid. We're going to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse, which every single American should be applauding. The Democrats should as well, but they're not allowing themselves to do it. And we're going to make sure it works better. We're going to preserve the program, not cut it. It's exactly the opposite of what the Democrats are saying. So the states will adjust to all these things, and we will make sure that the people who need these benefits and rely upon them are protected. Okay, that's the whole thing. Yeah.
Apologies for a wonky tax question. One of the big concerns for some of our investors and Bloomberg readers is the tax treatment of carried interest. The president wants to change that. What are your views on that?
I've listened to the discussion, a very thoughtful discussion back and forth amongst interested parties, and I'm not going to forecast where that comes. I mean, I know, look, I'll say this about our Ways and Means Republicans. They have put in, I mean, literally scores of hours down in the basement with the whiteboards, gaming out the very ideas and making sure that we make the right choices. You'll see a lot. That markup will be very telling on that. But they've come to a consensus. I'm not going to get out in front of them before that's discussed and released in committee. But we've heard from interest groups around the country, and we want to do right by them. I think at the end of the day, I think what's going to be great about this legislation, the reason it's going to be so consequential, the reason it's going to be the biggest legislation, I think, in many decades that Congress has passed, is because not only are we going to give everybody a tax break, right? They're not going to have the largest tax increase in U.S. history at the end of this year. It's going to help hardworking families. It's going to be turbo boost to the economy, because I think this will send a message of stability to the markets, the bond market, the stock market, investors, job creators, entrepreneurs, that they have their tax rates permanent and solidified. They know they can plan accordingly, and that people have more money in their pocket to spend on their own families and their own needs and obligations. That's going to be good for everybody. And I think when it comes to this, I think all boats are going to rise again. That was the net result in the first Trump administration, the greatest economy in the history of the world, because we did thoughtful tax policy and we did real regulatory reform. Right now, as Congressman Downing said, both those things are on steroids. And you're going to see this result in spades, and people are going to see it and feel it. And by the way, they're going to feel it before the midterm election in 2026. So that's another big thing. Last one.
You inserted a provision in a rule to block efforts to target Trump on tariffs. And now you've done the same to prevent resolutions of inquiry, including this probe into Pete Hegseth's use of Signal. Why are you using the rules of the House to effectively protect Trump rather than let the House work its will?
No, we're using the rules of the House to prevent political hijinks and political stunts, and that's what the Democrats have. As I mentioned, no leader, no vision, no platform. All they have is obstruction. They're trying to target. They showed us over the last 4 years, the last 8 years. They used lawfare. They used conspiracy theories. All these political weapons to just go after the president and make his life miserable. That's not what the American people voted for. That's not what they deserve. We can do better. So we're preventing this nonsensical waste of our time. We don't have time to waste. We got to, as I mentioned, we got to fix every. But as we've discussed many times in this room, the executive branch has the constitutional and appropriate legal authority to address unfair trade practices with other countries. That's exactly what President has been doing and is doing, and the results, I think, are going to be obvious at the end of this. We have to give them the runway. This is not a separation of powers concern at all. Congress has a role to play, but so does the executive, and I think everything they've done thus far has been entirely lawful and appropriate, and that's what our policies reflect. So we're going to continue to do that, and I think the American people are going to see the result at the end, and they're going to be quite satisfied by all this. So we got to.
Can you give a quick timeline on recommendation?